All right. Welcome everybody to another intentional success webinar. Um, I'm Tom Stimson. Today I'm going to talk about how scalable companies manage growth. So obviously we want to grow. As the company grows, the dynamic changes. We want to talk about what that looks like in scalable, balanced organizations. And this is some good stuff. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. A lot of this is coming out of the conversations that we're having inside of our intentional success clubs. As I'm working through my longtime clients, as they're going through their growth changes and patterns, a lot of good information coming to the forefront, making it much easier to talk about all of this. But before we get started, of course, this is being recorded. You'll have access to the recording on my website. You'll get an email to remind you how to get there, all that kind of good stuff. I do have a couple spots left for masterclass on strategic growth in Las Vegas. This is not about what I'm going to talk about today. This is about high level 80,000 foot growth strategies for your organization. This is that long-term growth. We're going to dive deep into all the organic and strategic options that are available. Talk about ROI. A lot of great folks signed up. We have people from all over the world coming to this event, which I'm very excited about. You'll realize that you have an awful lot in common. Geography doesn't really change how business works. So I look forward to watching everybody get to interact. And so that will be, so that masterclass will be June 11th in Las Vegas, right before Infocom exhibits open on the 12th. Jumpstart, the next Jumpstart is in August 14th and 15th. We'll have an opening reception on the 14th, all day on the 15th. This is for the planning and execution teams, operations for those of you who are not among the initiated or not the folks who have totally adopted the scalability model. But this is a great way to understand how your organization or your operational organization can become a planning organization and what that means for you and how it works. Hear from other companies that are doing the same thing, learn from them. Great networking opportunity. I've got one client that's bringing 8 people. Others are bringing 4 and 5. Whoever you send, make sure they're ready to bring some stuff home and share it with you so that the rest of the team can understand it. But do come check it out. Intentional Success Club. I am starting another club. I'm starting to take applications for it. I expect we will start in September. I would like to get a boot camp in before then, which is a way to get everybody trained up and understanding balance and scalability, have all the baseline things figured out so that we can actually skip a year of Intentional Success Club and get right into the biggest benefits of it. But wherever you are in your journey, if you want to have a group of peers to help hold you accountable, learn from each other, have me available to help guide you through this process of growing and evolving in the business, now's the time to start having that conversation, see what that looks like for you. And yes, I am testing something called Business Bootcamp. If I can find 5 companies that want to do this, we will pick a date and we will set this and see if we can find another 4 or 5, but I will go with 5 companies on this. This is a 2-day intensive program to teach you everything I know, which is a lot easier now because before scalability, I had to teach 17 different versions of the right way of doing things because everybody's project management system and processes and selling systems were different. In scalability, we do very similar things. We have very similar language. Our org charts look very similar. It's a much more franchisable model. Answering how we write proposals and how we price things, there's now one answer instead of 17 variations depending on how your company works. So this is a great opportunity to learn a lot of things really fast. If you want to get ahead, if you want to avoid the mistakes, particularly younger companies, if you want to know how to run your business, this is the way to do it. I look forward to hearing from you. So just reach out to me. Happy to talk to you about it. Now, let's get into today's webinar. Thanks for indulging me in the self-promotion. So How do scalable companies manage growth? Again, I'm having this webinar because there's things going on right now. A lot of temptation to hire. There's that, we get through a little busy period. People start to complain about how hard it was to do things or how we couldn't find enough freelancers or it's difficult to do last minute jobs. And the tendency is, well, we just need to hire some more people and address a pain point, which is exactly how we got into trouble before the pandemic, right? We kept hiring people, dropping people in with very specific roles to fulfill a pain point, to solve a short-term problem without addressing the long-term issues. We do this differently. In scalable companies, we use balance, and I'm going to teach you how to use balance today to figure out who you need to hire and what's the right way to work someone in. If you just happen to come across the perfect person, okay, this will also help you understand how to place that person. We're going to talk about sustainable growth. This is a seasonal business. We have surges and we have valleys. We have big clients that show up out of nowhere, and hopefully we'll come back next year. But we need to talk about what sustainable growth is. And since while many of you have a lot of repeat business, your repeat business isn't enough to pay all the bills. Now, in scalability, it should be. So we need to talk a little bit about what is the sustainable growth and how do we respond to it appropriately. Sometimes we have short-term growth, which means that we just need to suck it up and do better work, which requires that we have people in the right roles, that we're following the right processes. We've got a deep bench of supply chain to help us out so that we can get through those pinch points that happen in our schedule all the time. I will probably do this every webinar forever, as I do, once again, want to re-explain what balance is, okay? Balance is finding the right number of people, getting the right balance of insourcing and outsourcing for your business model for the size that you're at right now. And as the company grows, and today we are talking about growth, as the company grows, the balance points start to shift, right? So in scalability, we talk about when scalability is the goal. We want to be scalable so that every time we get extra revenue, that revenue generates more profit, okay? Rather than we're so focused on just covering our overhead, making our nut, as we like to say, getting to our baseline number and hoping that we have more business than that, hoping we have enough good months to offset the bad months, is not scalable. We want companies that are profitable. I'll say 11 months out of the year, 12 would be better, okay? And how do we do that? We keep our overhead really, really low. And in order to keep our overhead low, we need half the people that we used to use, but they need to be twice as good. They need to be experts at their roles. And we work on our basic jobs at our highest and best use every single day. The org chart that I look at for balanced organizations is selling, planning, and administration. Execution can be an additional sphere of your business, and balance and scalability doesn't mean that you outsource 100% of execution, though you might. It doesn't mean that you insource all selling and planning and admin, though you might, okay? It means that you're constantly aware that the selling, planning, and administration of a business goes on every single day, and execution is what you get to do sometimes if you're successful. So we want to keep those concepts separate because they are generally different people, particularly if you've gone beyond 7, 8, or 9 employees. So scalability is the goal, but balance is the tool that we're going to use to be successful, profitable, and not overreact to growth in our scalable business. Now, there's a very blurry path in growth. Over the years, I've talked about beta companies, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 businesses, and what they look like. These are the evolution of your business mastery, right? The same thing applies in scalable, but I'm going to use a little bit different criteria to describe what these organizations are like. And just as before, you can be a beta company with some 1.0 practices. You can be a 2.0 company with some 1.0 practices. The fact is, you don't jump from one to the other, you slowly meld into them. So there's always going to be some overlap. We usually see this as, sometimes we get held back because our 1.0 practices are keeping us from making 2.0 decisions and things like that. We need to be aware of this so that we understand what's going on. So let's talk about what these growth stages actually look like. Now, beta companies, pretty simple. This is the baseline. This is your startup model. This is the minimum we need to do. And trust me, I've met companies with 150 people who are beta companies, right? It's not the size of your business that determines where you are on your journey, right? Now, baseline companies are generally focused on stretching their capacity. They're trying to grow. They're trying to get enough revenue. They're working with what they have. Typically, you've got maybe an owner who is selling jobs. They're going to write the order and they're going to go out and do a gig because that's what you need to do when you're trying to stretch capacity. They probably at some point will hire either an operations person or a technical person to help them. And then they'll quickly hire the other one. And they've probably already started a part-time, at least, office person to help with books and back office things, or make sure that there's somebody to answer the phone while everybody out is doing shows. So your baseline beta company can sell jobs, they can plan the jobs, they will do the jobs themselves. They'll get paid. They will pay people. They'll do the basic business functions. They may have 1 to 4 full-time employees, and this is a great place to be. But like I said, you could have 20, 30, or 150 employees and still be only meeting baseline criteria. Now, as the company grows, okay, the roles of these people start to get narrower and narrower. The bigger the company, the smaller the job description. So let's take a look at what that starts to become. In a second level refinement, a 1.0 company, we're starting to take each individual in the organization, whether it's 4 or 40, and using them at their highest and best use. We're going to put the key talent in the right place. We're going to keep them there more often. I've traditionally called these anchor positions. They're always there to do that job. We're not stealing them to go out to do shows. A 1.0 company, scalable company, is going to do a lot more outsourcing, even though beta companies are outsourcing. They have to, but they're also trying to use their internal resources as much as possible just to keep the cash flow going, to help the business grow till they get to the point where they can do this. So they're still going to sell jobs, but the person selling them is probably not going to go out and do the gig anymore. They're still going to plan jobs, but the person planning the job is probably not going to drive the truck, right? They're going to do jobs, okay, but the people doing the jobs may not prep every job they're on anymore. Makes sense? We're still going to get paid. We're still going to pay people, but maybe we're not going to manage the IT, HR, the facilities. Maybe we've hired a cleaning service. Maybe we've outsourced some IT. Maybe we're getting a third-party company to help us with HR issues, right? So that I don't have to put more people on staff that I can't really justify at this point. But I'm getting the work done. Now, as we move into 2.0, now we're really starting to look like a balanced company, right? Our focus here is making sure the standard of care for all the things that we do is always maintained. And that is not just what we do for our customers, it's what we do for ourselves. So we're no longer in the business of doing shows. We are now in the business of getting shows done, which is a huge shift. This is a sea change in how businesses think. We're going to sell the jobs, but we're always selling. We don't stop selling because we're busy doing jobs now, because we're always filling the pipeline for the future. And selling is more than just writing proposals and taking orders. It's also about marketing and business development and client maintenance. So all of those activities have to go on all the time, regardless of how big this week's show is or how many people are out on job site. We're always planning jobs. Because just because we have a big show going on now doesn't mean we don't have a big show next week or the week after. So planning has to go on all the time. We cannot steal resources from planning to go out and do shows because that will upset our balance. And now we're back to 1.0 or beta, and we're limiting our ability to grow. We are getting the jobs done. We're no longer in the business of doing shows. We are in the business of getting shows done. There are always jobs happening, okay? Whether we're using internal execution resources, external execution resources, or both, okay? We are always getting shows done. We're giving them the tools and resources they need so that execution can get the shows done, and selling, planning, and administration can continue to run the business every single day. Now, you have administration, they're still going to administrate the business, but they're going to do it even when they're busy. I mean, how many times you said, well, we'll get to personnel reviews when we slow down? A balanced company doesn't do that. A balanced company is always working on the things that need to be done, right? They're not too busy to run the business, right? And this buys you a lot of, this gives you a lot of time. It changes your sense of urgency. We're always moving forward. We're always taking care of things. If we've got to update the IT system or update the intranet, we're going to get that done, right? We're not going to wait for downtime. Balanced companies don't live for downtime, right? They do the work anyway. Now, we're not done, okay? 3.0 companies that can control their strategic trajectory. If they can decide where they want to go and can apply sources to it at will, if they can add a line of business, if they can pick out a new channel, a new geography, new products and services, okay, and they know how to implement this without upsetting the rest of the business, you're probably a 3.0 company, right? You're in control of your destiny. Not that everything works, but you have the bandwidth and the resources and the knowledge to give it the best try it can get. And you also are smart enough to recognize when it's not working and either change your tactic or pull back out. So we're always selling jobs. We're always planning jobs. We're always getting jobs done. Okay. These companies, when they get busy, don't add more people. They will bring in short-term resources. They will outsource things that are daily activities. They will outsource selling. They will outsource salespeople for 6 months or a year. They will outsource planning resources. We need people to do a lot of drawings for these upcoming jobs. Okay. Of course, we're going to outsource to do the jobs, to do the shows, because that's already well in place. We're going to even outsource an administration because we may have a big project where we need to bring in an extra bookkeeper or an extra accounts payable person to manage all the buying for that job. Maybe we're passing money through. Maybe we need to bring in a travel team for a big tour. There's so many things that might happen in a 3.0 company, but they're not going to add permanent resources for a temporary need. It's a great spot to be in. These companies can make a lot of money because their overhead is always being controlled. Now, growth nothing happens without selling, right? We've got to do selling, and selling is marketing and business development and prospect development and project design. We're doing estimates. We're doing creative. We're generating proposals, and we're sitting down and closing a deal. You know, there's account management and account executives in there somewhere. And there's so many things that happen in order to sell, and we have to work on all of those things. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of this time talking about selling because that's what's really important here for growth. I'm very confident in everybody's ability to keep up with the planning side because planning is what you do. It's generally how most of you define yourselves, is your ability to plan and execute upcoming events. But without selling, what does it matter, right? So we don't want to add planning resources if we haven't had the sales and the sustainable sales to justify it. So The goal in selling is always to get better revenue. More revenue might be great, and it might be great for a short time, but eventually, and if you're a beta company, more revenue is really what you're looking at. If you're a 1.0 company, more revenue is great, but you start to realize that what you want is better revenue. Okay. And better revenue this is the quality of the revenue, not the quantity. And it doesn't mean that it's all wildly profitable. Okay. You want it to fit what you do. You want to work with the kind of people that you want to work with, and you want to be able to make some decent margins and maybe pick and choose a little bit of that business. You want to take as much quality work as you can sell, which means you want to be in a position where you can turn away lower quality work, which is a way of filtering. So filtering is very important in selling. That's why we always start with marketing. Marketing controls our filters. We have another filter control in business development. We have another filter control in account management, in design, in pricing, and estimating, and capabilities pitches, customer onboarding. We have filters all through the selling process so that we end up with better revenue, right? In scalability, staying busy is more important than protecting a price point. I just heard a lot of people. I'm going to say it again while you're processing. Staying busy is more important than protecting a price point. You've got overhead. You need revenue with gross profit to pay for that overhead. If you're getting better revenue, that is, it's the type of work you want to do for the type of people that you want to do, the margin is not as important as the fact that you are making a margin. Okay. The concept of, oh, I need to protect a price point, or we're always worth this much, or I can't do seasonal pricing because people will want that price when we're busy. You've got to get that all out of your head. That is old school thinking. Scalable companies don't think that way. They say, in this month, I need X amount of revenue. I'd like to have Y amount of revenue. Okay. But what I'm really looking at is how much gross profit am I going to make? Sometimes if I need to make a $500,000 in gross profit, I can do it with $800,000 worth of business. Sometimes it's going to take $1.5 million worth of business. Okay. But as long as it's the kind of revenue that you're looking for, you are being scalable, your balanced organization will continue to work. And if you cherry pick your revenue, your planning team finds it easier to execute than if every job is custom, every job is different, every client is different. We're doing, one day we're doing a trade show, the next day we're doing a general session. Wait a minute, what business are we in? Better revenue filters out a lot of that. So the right customers, and that's channel, the type of work that they want you to do for them, that is more important than empty revenue, which is an opportunity to answer an RFP that has a big number on it. Maybe it's a low margin. Maybe you'll make a lot of gross profit that month. But the fact is that is not better revenue. That's empty calories. Put your energy into the better revenue. Quit building up overhead that makes you chase empty revenue, right? If you're chasing empty revenue, you've got too much overhead, or you're not putting nearly enough energy into selling. Probably both. So the lower the overhead, the fewer revenue crises that you're going to have. And if you've got your overhead as low as it can go and you're still having revenue crises, stop what you're doing, put 80% of all of your available energy into selling, because that's going to solve your problem. Now, selling. I'm going to talk about two scenarios. There's no such thing as flat. I'm going to talk about if demand is increasing and demand is decreasing. There's no such thing as flat. You're probably growing up or you're going down. Just look at the trend lines. Looking at a trailing 12 months or multi-year, you're never going to be flat. It's always moving. So if your demand is increasing, okay, your goal is to improve the quality of your revenue, right? Marketing comes first. Tweak your message. Make sure that you're being more exclusive to the types of buyers that you want to work with. Make sure you're being more exclusive to the type of work that you want to do. De-emphasize the things that you do, oh, by the way, yes, of course we do that when we have to, but we're leading with our highest and best use. If your highest and best use is general session, talk about general sessions. If you're talking about, oh, the rentals and the small events and the trade show booths and all the other things in the breakout rooms that you could do, okay, you're just diluting your value proposition, which is general sessions. Of course, you can do all the other stuff, right? You're looking for customers that have a general session first. If they have these other things, of course, you can take care of that. Now, you're also going to be emphasizing your value proposition to allow for higher prices. We're not always going to get them. Okay. In competitive situations where you're trying to win a new customer, your higher price is not going to work. They're not going to negotiate with you. They're going to go with a lower price because they're looking for a new company. And why not try the people who came in at a lower price, right? If you really want to win a customer, come in at your best price. Sharpen your pencil, as we say. Know exactly what your costs are. Find a comfortable margin that you can live with and come in at that lowest number you can. Give them the opportunity to learn that you are probably worth a little bit more money, right? This is not what I would have told you 5 years ago. This is definitely what I'm telling you now based on the buyers that we're seeing, okay? And increase your quote speed, right? Because you want to close sooner. If you're taking 4 or 5 days or a week to get a proposal out, okay, you're wasting your time. Figure out what something costs, get that proposal to them, or get those numbers in front of them before you develop a proposal. This is much more important than getting into all the details and finding all of the right words, because nobody reads your proposals anyway. They're going to go straight to the price. They're going to scan the rest of the proposal to see if you sound like you're legit, right? Here we are. This is the world we live in. We've got younger buyers. They don't care about some of the details that you're putting in. Learn how to write proposals for them. Now, when demand is decreasing, okay, well, now you're fighting a little bit for market share. You want to improve the volume of your revenue. And there's an opportunity when demand is increasing across the industry to really double down and grow your customer base, because you're going to sell at a lower margin because you're trying to increase your revenue. Are we going to accept broader revenue? Yeah, we're going to loosen up our filter a little bit. We're going to go a little bit wider. You know, maybe we will look for event planning work, or maybe we will spend more time looking into the opportunity to do a gala that we wouldn't have normally done. Our value proposition is still going to matter. Okay. I'm still going to try and be competitive, but I got to make sure my value proposition is really clear, because all things being equal, you want to be chosen, right? And somebody will always match or beat your price, right? You want to look like you're worth it, and you want to make it clear that you're putting a really good deal on the table, and there's really no place else to go beyond this deal. Put a lot of value in it, okay? There are always incentives to move closer. Your finest and best deal always has 5 or 10 points left in it, right? So you can make that closing deal on there, which is a little bit of negotiation. Okay. But if somebody really wants to work with you, they will come back and say, look, these other guys came in 20 grand less than you. Can you give me anything? And say, yeah, if you will commit and do this, I'll give you another 5 points off the entire job. It's still not going to get to their price, but clearly we're the better fit for you. Great, close the deal. Now, planning. We know what to do in selling if things are increasing or decreasing. In planning, we also have to respond, right? We don't have a lot of excess resources laying around because we are a balanced organization. If demand is increasing, put more energy into developing your supply chain. Don't say, oh my goodness, we need to hire more people. Of course, you need to book farther out, but what you really need to do is develop your supply chain. Now, if you can see demand coming, if you're looking at your pipeline and you see that demand is increasing, put energy into developing that supply chain as soon as possible. Right now, I'm dealing with a lot of folks who have a very busy fall coming up. If you haven't booked your crews for the fall, you are not paying attention, right? So there's a industry-wide sense that demand is increasing. Maybe you're not feeling it in your company. However, your supply chain is going to feel it. So book your resources farther in advance if you see demand increasing. Increase your recruiting efforts to make sure you have a deep bench of suppliers. Standardize and reduce unnecessary customization in everything that you do. Okay. How many of you have been talking about putting systems and kits together so it's easier to quote and it's easier to prep, right? If demand is increasing, you should have already done this. This is what a planning team would do. They would not settle for having to figure out how to custom solve every single job or how to move a piece of gear from one rack to another rack. That's insane, right? So demand tells you that you need to be working on that. Now, if demand is decreasing, okay, we still have all those things that we need to do. We still want to standardize. We still want to, manage, but our goal is to deliver our plan sooner. Get the jobs buttoned up sooner. When you've got steady demand is increasing, you probably have a timetable that says, hey, the job is scrubbed and ready to go to the shop 4 days before it leaves. It may not get prepped until the day before, but we've made the effort to put it in place. If demand is decreasing, maybe you're buttoning that job up a week earlier, 10 days before it leaves, and then making minor changes along the way. This is freeing up your capacity to do the things that you should be doing, which is reducing your unnecessary customization, standardizing systems and kits, making it easier for the selling team to put quotes together. Okay. We definitely want to monitor over delivery. If demand is decreasing, we do not want to be over delivering on anything. Okay. We definitely want to manage hours and be hypersensitive to our hourly employees and our hourly external resources that we're using them appropriately. Don't let the money fall through your fingers. Now, I'm not leaving administration out of this because this is a three-legged stool. While your admin team may be smaller than the rest of the organization, they're still very important. When demand is increasing, okay, administration should be looking for admin tasks that are hiding in selling and admin tasks that are hiding in planning and pulling them over into their sphere. Okay. Hiring an assistant to take care of things that should be admin things, but through legacy, subsidy, the owner being in this role and he's always done this, admin should be pulling those things away. Let us do this. We should be doing this. You're not the IT person anymore. Go out and do the show. You're not the IT person anymore. Help selling put the estimate together. We're going to get IT outsourced. Admin also has to read the room and support urgency, right? If selling and planning are busy and demand is increasing, there's a lot of urgency going on. Admin can't just run at that same pokey pace that they would like to run at. Not that I'm overcharacterizing admin. They need to respond to that sense of urgency. If you're having to hire or bring in new suppliers, you need to onboard faster, right? You're going to need to pay sooner because we don't want any hiccups in our supply chain. If there's any admin roles that you need to outsource that will increase your capacity to support urgency, now's the time to do it. Hire somebody short-term to do, accounts receivable, right? Hire somebody short-term to do accounts payable. There's things that you can do. Outsource HR, right? Make that part of your life easier. Find a better way of doing payroll, right? Now, when demand is decreasing, okay, admin, we got to protect cash flow. Okay. Now the finance arm kicks in. We want to look at our internal budgets. We want to generate more reports for management. We want to reduce the credit card spend. And trust me, half your credit card spend is arbitrary. It's not really necessary. It's convenient. It's better to generate a purchase order and write a check than it is to use a credit card. Think about it, right? And just review costs in general. Make sure that everybody who buys is aware of what the cost trends are in their area. We have time for more meetings, more reports. We need to dive deeper. Maybe we need to adjust our pricing. Maybe we need to change some practices so that we can increase our margins even at a lower revenue. Lots of things that admin can be helping us with. which brings me to personnel, right? Probably what you've been waiting for the past 30 minutes. So I want to talk a little bit about org charts and scalable roles. You all know what an org chart looks like. You're on one. There's a box at the top, and there's a box next to it, and some boxes under it, and then some more boxes, and then a whole bunch of boxes, right? Yuck. Okay. Org charts don't help anyone. Org charts are for outsiders to look at your company. It's what the bankers look at. It's what the private equity firm that's trying to buy you wants to look at. It has nothing to do with how we actually run our business, because on any given day, somebody in the middle or the bottom of that org chart is the most important person in the world, because they're standing in front of a customer on a show site with a problem to solve. Org charts are a waste of time. They're almost as meaningless as our pricing systems, which is a pretty low bar. All right. Org charts versus scalable roles. What I'm doing with my clients right now, all my Intentional Success Club members have been through this, is we're taking their traditional org chart and we're remapping it into our scalable roles chart. Again, I'm going to use these 3 spheres, and this is very typical. This is a 20 to 25 person company. We look at the number of people, we go through the org chart and say, what is this person's job? Well, they're director of sales and marketing, but they also call shows. Okay, so they're really in selling. We're just stealing them. We're not outsourcing properly, so we're going to put them in selling. We have account executives, account managers. We have a tech estimator in selling. What if you don't have a tech estimator? Oh, well, the video designer helps us with estimating. Well, wait a minute, but the video designer's planning on how to get the shows done, right? So we go through this and try to figure out where should people be. It doesn't mean that there isn't some crossover, and in smaller companies there will be, but we need to make sure that our selling sphere is fully functional. And if you don't have internal marketing, you need external marketing, because trying to sell today without marketing is just insane. There's no way to be credible. There's no way to find new business if you're not putting energy into marketing. So we need a team in a 10 to $20 million company. We need 6 people probably on the sell side, each working at their highest and best use, none of them involved in the execution of the show, none of them involved in admin or planning. We go over to the planning side. Planning is a big job. Well, it's a big job now, but right now you've got people doing planning who are living in sales, living in management, living in admin, living in execution, and we're all trying to plan. But what happens when you're busy? Our planning team just shrunk to 2 people. So we need dedicated planning teams in companies of this size, a director of production. We need some production coordinators, okay? One of them or both of them probably, they might do the same thing. They support subrentals, booking labor, and travel, okay? It's a shared responsibility among a couple of people. We might have a designer, a technical designer, who takes what was sold, occasionally consults with selling, but we also have a technical estimator over there in selling to help with that. Okay. We do need our traditional ops manager. Okay. We need an ops manager before we need a warehouse manager, because an ops manager should be managing the internal resources, which is the inventory that you have on hand, identifying where we're going to need to subrent, so the production coordinators can do that, and working with the assistants who are part of the prep team to get shows done. Of course, we need a local driver, because we got pickups and returns for subrentals and shipping, not to go out and do shows, oh, by the way, okay? Then in admin, we have our accounting, we have HR, there's some sort of an assistant, maybe it's an APAR clerk. We have IT support. There might be more, but in a company this size, this is typically what I would see. Now, I still have an owner, and I still probably have a general manager at a company this big. Okay, the owner is going to do whatever it is the owner does, because they've earned the right, at this stage of their business. The GM is going to make sure that selling, planning, and admin are working together as they should and maintaining that balance. Okay. Execution, I might have a couple more employees, because of this size, I can probably keep a couple of production managers for larger projects in play. They're just going to start their work on projects much later. A lot of the things that a production manager would typically do are going to be done by the planning team. right? So they can be involved later in the process. They can be finishing up the job they are on now, staying in touch with the planning team to make sure that the right drawings and the right decisions, consulting on who to sub rent from or how to get that rigging problem solved. They can be involved, but they don't have to be as deeply involved. Now, if I'm growing, if I'm suddenly going to be a $30 million company, well, what do I need to add? Well, you probably didn't become a $30 million company without adding sales. But if my selling effort is really paying off and my funnel is really growing and we're kicking it, I probably need to add an account manager at that point. Okay. I don't need to add more planning. I probably don't need to add more admin. I might need to add another person in execution, another senior production manager. See how that works? So we don't just grow to, we grow 50%, we don't add 50% more people is the point in all this. So we're looking for balance. Scalability is the goal, but balance is the tool. How can I do more with fewer people? Keep them focused on the jobs that they do so that we are not waiting to get the work done. We're always working on getting the shows done. But let's look at a smaller company, right? So in a smaller company, 5 to 8 employees, $3 to $6 million company, you could be a $1 million company right now and have 6 employees. I get that. But you could do a lot more business before you need to add another person if you have the right people. Now, what do I need? Very often what I'll see in a 5 to 8 person company is one salesperson plus the owner, right? And I'll have an ops manager, maybe a driver, maybe a warehouse person, and one office person, and one show person, right? And the ops manager will go out and do shows sometimes. The reason that that model won't work is because we are subsidizing execution with our core team, which means that we are not being able to fully focus on growth. So in the 2019 version of this company, there would be 2 technicians over in execution, and they'd be at what, 10 or maybe even 12 employees, still maybe 1 or 1.5 account executives, maybe 1 or a half a person in the office. Okay. In a scalable organization, I need 1.5 to 2 people in selling. Okay. I'm assuming here that the owner also handles some sales, but the owner also handles some planning and they also handle some admin. But we want to build out that planning team so it uses less of the owner's time so that we can focus more on selling. Eventually, we'll get to the point where our selling team will build up. We'll have more sales. We will add more planning. We'll add another admin person. We still don't need to add anybody else in production or in execution, right? Because we're outsourcing. This model relies more on the owner to fill in maybe technical design and estimation. Maybe they're doing the outside sales. Maybe they're helping with procurement. This company is going to outsource marketing because you still have to do everything that selling requires. They're probably going to outsource accounting. Bookkeeping's in-house, accounting is out of house. Okay. They're probably outsourcing IT because relying on the operations manager to do it didn't work, right? So there's things that we can do to be more scalable. So I can get a lot of business done. I can go from $3 to $6 million with 8 employees without having to add anybody. Okay. I might get close to that with 7 employees. I might get to $12 million by adding maybe 2 more employees. But eventually I'm going to start running out of balance and I'm going to want to start bringing more things in-house. I'm going to need more energy in selling. I'm going to do more marketing and more business development on a daily basis. I'm going to do more planning on a daily basis. I'm going to need more resources there. I'm going to need a deeper bench of suppliers, which means I'm going to need production coordinators to outsource for me. Okay. As the load increases, I've got to fill the spheres to keep the balance going. Makes sense? So our point is, don't fill a position to fix a pain point. Oh, we screwed up travel on this job. Let's hire a travel person. Or we're having trouble finding freelancers. Let's hire a labor coordinator. Labor coordinator is not going to fix your problem. Your planning manager is going to fix the problem. hire a production coordinator that will help with talent acquisition, talent scheduling. Okay. But somebody needs to be in charge of planning to make that happen. Somebody needs to be in charge of selling to make sure that we're getting the results that we want out of selling. So it's a very different way of looking at things. And if you look at the organization you have now and you plug folks in, look at where you're out of balance. Look at where your needs are not being met. If you're understaffed in selling, it's going to be apparent, and most of you are. If we're having to use planning people to get quotes done because your account executives, and why should they be able to write a quote soup to nuts all by themselves, as that's probably not their highest and best use. Maybe we need to put some resources on technical direction into selling. Lots of different ways to get things done. The other cool thing about looking at this instead of looking at an org chart is, what if you have a chance to get hire a really cool person who brings a lot to the game? What is their highest and best use? Where can they fit in? And where does it allow other people to go? I guarantee you right now, you have a project manager or a production manager who's going out and doing shows who would be a fantastic account manager. And guess what? They can build their own quotes, right? And they're not going to make the kinds of mistakes a traditional salesperson would make. Or maybe they can help all the other salespeople write better quotes and come to better solutions without bothering planning, who's busy getting the next show done. Lots of ways to look at this. Find good people, put them into your balanced model, and see how that shifts things around. So, all right. This has been fun. We got time for some questions. Start thinking about what your questions would be. Please drop a question in the Q&A box. We must have been really interesting because the chat got really quiet really quick, but that's okay. Get those questions ready. I'll remind you, the masterclass on strategic growth is June 11th. I have 2 seats left. If you have not attended before, please reach out to me. If you have attended before, just tell me you want to come and I'll get you taken care of. Jumpstart Planning and Execution registration is open. Go to my website, go to events, Jumpstart. Right now we have super early bird pricing in effect until the 31st. So you've got a chance to save some serious money, and then the price gets higher and higher. July 1, we're going to hit retail pricing, and this event, well, all my operations events have always sold out. I expect this one to be no different. So get your teams booked up now. Intentional Success Club, if you want to learn more about it, I'm happy to chat with you. No obligation. I'm always ready. Go to my website, click on Let's Chat. I'll be happy to explain anything about that, and including boot camp, which if we talk about club, we want to talk about boot camp. But if you're interested in boot camp, if you like the idea of being inundated and working on all of these things and getting a lot of questions answered and meeting other people who are asking the same questions so that you guys can compare notes, this is going to be a fantastic event. I really love this kind of stuff. A lot of bang for the buck. Reach out to me. Let's talk about it. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. Next month's webinar, we're going to talk about what is next for scalability. We're constantly working on this. My whiteboard is always full. We're learning new things. We're applying new stuff, coming up with new podcasts to talk about these things. I want to tell you where this is going and what I see for the industry. This should be fun and interesting. And then I may have something even more interesting for you in July, because there's a lot of fun stuff going on. All right, some key takeaways for today. If you can't read your sales funnel, or you can't rely on your sales funnel, then you need to fix some stuff. You need to fix your CRM. You need to fix your forecasting. And if that doesn't work, then you need to replace some leadership. If you're the owner and you're the leader of this and you can't make it work, this is the person you need to hire. You need to hire somebody who understands how to do this and get out of the way, because you're the problem. So selling is everything. If we don't sell, none of the rest of the stuff matters. I don't care how much warehouse space you have, how many laser projectors you own. If you can't sell and know how to react to your selling channel, the rest of it is just a waste of money. If planning becomes the constraint in your business, when you have so much business going on that planning is starting to freak out and getting a little edgy and wanting to hire people, they're a constraint. Before you start throwing people at it, make sure your processes are actually getting the attention that they need. Make sure that people are in the right roles, that we don't have somebody who's hoarding responsibility, which is usually what's happening. Okay. And if we don't fix it with those steps, then we need to replace some leadership before we start putting more people into a problematic system. Right. Now, administration is overlooked and underappreciated. Okay. They need to have key roles. They need to take more responsibility. Quit hiring an office manager part-time. Look at all the things that an executive assistant could do for your business so that bookkeeping can do bookkeeping, HR can do HR. So they are not involved in selling and planning. They take burden away from selling and planning and keep things moving forward and get all the reports and everything that you need to run your business. All right. We're going to jump into some questions here. Let me kill this screen share here. All right, let me read ahead here. Please keep some questions coming. We got several minutes. I'd like to get a few questions in. From the selling funnel side and getting numbers to a prospect quickly, do you mean look at crew needs, double it plus a little? Okay, somebody came to the Jumpstart Selling Workshop. Do you mean look at crew needs, double it plus a little thought on specifics, then respond via a simple email? Look, this is really about, before we write a proposal, we need to know that there's something that's actually sellable here. If you can't have a conversation with a customer that says, hey, here's what I'm looking at, we'd like to do this. If you can't generate a range for them quickly on the phone, then schedule the next call. Say, hey, let me look at some options with you. Are you available tomorrow or later today? I can come back with you and give you some samples. If you don't have an idea of what their budget is, if they're playing, well, I don't know what my budget is game, which is a lie. If they want you to bid blindly, okay, you just got to decide whether you want to play the game. But before I write a proposal for anyone, I want them to know what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you a proposal for $50,000 to $70,000, and it's going to do all these things we talked about. And I'm going to give you some options for these things that you thought would be nice. Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Is that going to work in your budget? Well, we don't know what our budget's going to be. Okay. Well, how will we find out what your budget's going to be? Well, you need to send me a proposal. I just gave you a proposal. I don't mean be snitty with them. Just say, if $50,000 to $70,000 isn't something that you can say yes to right now, okay, why don't you put me in front of the person who needs to say yes to that right now? I don't want you to commit to the thing. I just don't want to write a proposal if you have no idea what your budget is. Okay. And if your budget is $20,000, and this is what's important, if your budget is $20,000, that's okay. Just tell me your budget is $20,000. Okay. We get hung up. We become married to the job that we want to do. And the customer comes back and says, whoa, we really liked your proposal, but our budget's only half that. Well, one, that would have been a great bit of information before I put all that time and energy into that proposal that I'm now in love with. Now, what you need to do, if you find yourself in that situation, so awesome. Is that a hard $30,000? Is that your target? Okay, $30,000. Great. Here's what we can do for $30,000. Would you like to see that in a proposal? Okay. All I'm saying is get more information out of the customer. Don't think that you're going to close a deal because you wrote a wonderful proposal. If there's not sort of any kind of an agreement in concept, and concept includes a budget range, okay, and the deliverables and a fit and finish, okay, and having an idea of when they're going to make a decision or how they're going to make a decision. But if they're just fishing for numbers because they need to go back and figure out how to budget this job, give them some numbers, just don't write a proposal. Here's an example of a $30,000 job that's kind of what you're describing. The fit and finish isn't really high, but it's very utilitarian and it will meet most of your technical needs. Here's a $60,000 version of the same thing. It's going to allow you to do this and it's going to look this much better. This is the stuff you need to have in your lookbook that you can share with them easy and say, hey, this is a job that's $25,000 to $35,000 depending on duration. Here's a job that's $50,000 to $70,000 depending on duration. So they can go back and figure out what they need. That's called being helpful. Please, please work on being helpful. Thank you for that question. All right. Another question here. I agree. I'm seeing a lot of price shoppers who have no interest in negotiating. All right. So the current concern here, okay, this is turning into a job cost question. The words I'm seeing here, and I hear this all the time, was we have a minimum gross profit expectation. We expect every job when we write it to be able to generate 50% gross profit. And if it's less than that, we probably don't want to quote the job. Well, one, that's a completely arbitrary gross profit number, considering that your pricing is arbitrary. And I can make any job look like it's going to generate 50% gross profit, okay, just by acting like I don't need to subrent anything. So knowing what your actual costs are very important. If you're looking at a job and you've got a busy schedule and you're trying to decide what it's worth, you're going to sell from cost. You look at, hey, I know I'm going to have to outsource this. I'm going to have to outsource this. I know the job is worth this, but I'm willing to take a 30% gross profit because I can knock this job out and the sub rentals are easy and the outsourcing is easy, right? You need to know what jobs are worth. Job cost on a job does not apply in scalability. It doesn't matter. You've got a bunch of jobs. No one job. Every job you do generates gross profit. There's always the exception. You know who you are. Every job you do generates gross profit. You're willing to take less gross profit on this job because you're going to get more gross profit on that job. That's just business. So knowing how you get to that number is very important. Knowing that you've got a customer who wants to spend $30,000 and they need to spend 40, but you know what? This is a job. They need a partner. This is somebody that you want to work with. They're a great fit. There's a chance to do this every year. They've had a bad experience. You're going to impress them. Do the job for $30,000. You're still going to make $10,000 or $15,000. Right? Next year, maybe it'll be $35,000 and you're going to make $18,000 or $20,000, right? Or maybe it'll come in a good week and you'll make $30,000. Maybe it'll come in a bad week and you'll make $5,000. But the point is, you want to win customers. Of course, you want customers for life. Of course, you want repeat business, but you're not going to get that by trying to protect your job cost against some arbitrary numbers and expectations. Yeah. All right. Well, no more time for questions. This has been fun. If you have more questions about this or have interest in how this applies to your business, just reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with you. I don't need to sell you anything for you to ask me a question. Just reach out. I want to answer your questions. That's what I'm here for. If I haven't chatted with you for a long time, you know who you are. Catch up. Let's talk. If you're coming to InfoComm, let me know. We'll find some time to hook up, meet with you for a few minutes, see what's going on, or meet you face-to-face for the first time. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a great rest of your month, and we will see you again soon.